This meeting of the Redevelopment Authority to order, and let the record reflect that we have a quorum. And is there any public comment at this point in time? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to item number 23, approval of the minutes of January 18th, 2018. Has everyone had a chance to read those?
I move to approve the minutes of the Carson City Redevelopment Authority from January 18th, 2018 as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
On to item 24A, to appoint one member to the Carson City Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee. There's one position for citizen at large to fill a 3-year term ending January of 2021. So who is our first candidate?
So we have Sherry Powell, and then we have Gregory Stedfield next, and so far Eric Kimsey is not here. So Sherry's going to go ahead and go first.
Sherry, I'll have you come up to the table right there and just press the button. And state your name. And the way this works is we all ask a series of questions, and then afterwards you're invited to stay and listen to the other candidates that apply, and then we make the hard decision.
Okay.
All right? So just state your name for the record.
My name is Sherry Lynn Powell.
Okay. Sherry, I'm going to ask, I get the privilege of asking the first question. So I'm going to ask you a couple. First of all, why do you want to do this? And secondly, what types of events, because you do get to disperse monies for special events funding, what types of special events to promote the arts and to promote the redevelopment areas would you like to see?
Okay. First off, I'm new to Carson City. I'm actually a 2-year resident. I moved here from the city of Las Vegas, specifically Henderson area. And while I lived in Las Vegas, I went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I know, bad, but I did actually graduate with my degree in environmental science. And during that time, we did extensive work. When I say we, I mean my department. The Department of Environmental Studies. We did extensive work with the redevelopment of the downtown area in the city of Las Vegas, and we created the Arts District at that time. We were able to get a bunch of community members on board, along with the mayor's office and our city supervisors, to get everybody on board with offering subsidies to artists downtown in exchange for, they were subsidized on their rent, but every first Friday they did have to put on a show. And up to them if they wanted to open up their home where they lived to be the art gallery for the show. And so I've seen successful turnarounds of areas that have been dilapidated or misused or not even put to use because somebody hasn't had the ability to renovate the property or bring it up to speed. And so I saw that happening when I moved here to Carson City, and I purchased a house on the west side, and I just love the area. So that's why I would want to be on the board.
Thank you.
Your second question?
The second one was, what types of special events would you like to see redevelopment monies go towards to promote the arts?
Okay, and that's a good question. I have been part of our wine walks and some of the art shows in the art gallery, Brewery Arts Center. They've had some pretty amazing events occurring there. So I'd like to see the encouragement of that. Currently, I'm on a website called nextdoor.com, and I have given out invitations and had about 119 people in my community actually join that website. And we were also able to come together to vote on the Brewery Arts Center to have the music come back, the free concert series. And I'm just constantly out there waving at my neighbors, telling people how I can help them, what can we do to get along, or what can we do to change something, or how can we help one another out. And so I think the monies would be best spent with community events that are going to be free for people to attend, or have a smaller cost to attend, such as movies in the park, which we do here, but more in the areas that need maybe artist involvement. I would like to see concerts, of course, those are always fun. Art shows. One of the things that I noticed was that there's not a lot of art classes available for people to take and be a part of. And I know that when you get a community together, that if you're helping them, fostering, creating an artistic environment, they'll come together and do murals free, for the city. And you end up with beautiful pieces of work.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
All right, Brad.
Hey, Sherry. If you'd have worn blue and silver today,
I'm sorry?
I said if you'd have worn blue and silver today, I might have been able to forgive you for your previous life as a rebel.
The black is considered mourning, so.
I have a couple of questions for you. First, have you read or looked at the redevelopment areas, and are you familiar with the 2 redevelopment areas?
I have read and looked at them. I know there's been updates, and I'm very curious, because of course I'd have to do more looking into it, but I'm very curious about especially the automotive area, where all the auto sales are. So that's something that's piqued my curiosity, because what do we do there, right? So I've read about some of those changes and some of the ideas, but definitely need to read more.
Good. That's a perfect segue into my second question is, redevelopment dollars can be spent on infrastructure improvements. It can be spent on beautification projects. It can be spent on special events. Can you give us just a brief idea of your thoughts on the 3 and how you would prioritize them?
All right, so let's cover the 3 again. Beautification,
special events and infrastructure.
And infrastructure. So initially for me, infrastructure would be the most important, because a good example for me is just driving on the road that direction, but also there's no real designated bike paths and not a lot of walkability in the area, which doesn't get people involved in getting out and about in the community. When you're doing infrastructure, and if it's with bike paths or trails, etc., you inherently get to that beautification, right? You start building up a community that is more pleasing to be in, more pleasing to be active in, and people want to participate, like they did with the park, with the benches down on Carson. So people want to participate. And so then, of course, my last one, great, and I just forgot the third one.
Special events.
Special events. Okay, yes. So special events would be my last one, because you can oftentimes, as I've learned, have that community support and have an individual or private sector, a company, an agency want to help put on that special event and help subsidize that.
Thank you. And you'll be happy to know that the Redevelopment Authority just awarded $550,000 for a complete streets project on Carson Street.
And don't worry about Supervisor Bunkowski talking to me about blue and silver. I'm Cardinal, so don't worry about that. Oh. But and you made up for all of us here because you moved here to Carson City. So take that. Brad asked. We went down to questions that I was going to ask, but I had one question, perhaps a simple question, but let me ask it like this: what is the source of redevelopment funds?
The source, the TIF.
The source.
Yeah, the TIF. So the taxes that are added on to just
where
give
do
that
the taxes come from?
bubble. From people who live in Carson City.
And are they, what kind of taxes?
Property taxes.
Okay, all right.
That was, okay.
She had the short and sweet answer. She got it.
It might have been UNLV, but I did learn some things.
Wow. Okay.
It's all right.
Let's see if I can move in a direction here that'll get me off the hook. So often the Citizen Redevelopment Committee is faced with the challenge of vetting one project against another to determine which one gets picked or which one gets financed or granted dollars. What process, so let's say I had 3, currently we do facade improvements that are allowed, and I have 3 competing projects before me. What are some of the methodologies you would use to determine which one gets the funding?
One of the things that I'm most familiar with is getting out and hitting the streets, talking to my neighbors. Like I said, I've just moved here 2 years, but I've only lived in my house for a year, 6 months. And my first year, not even 6 months into my house, threw a cookie exchange party because I didn't know a single one of my neighbors. And so what I like to do is actually get out and talk to people and see what it is that they're interested in and see what it is they support and have that conversation ongoing so that it's not just a one-time thing, but this is the plan, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is how I can help you, it's a community. It's not just a one-time business shot, one-time deal, wheeling deal, let's get it done. This is actually building a community. So, for example, what I did with the next door, having that cookie exchange party, now I know all of my neighbors on my street, and we all look out for one another. I can call them and say, hey, I noticed somebody's on your roof. Are they supposed to be? You know, and I kind of find it funny because I'll come out to put my trash out for the day for trash pickup, and it'll already be out. And I am a single woman, so it's not magic. But my neighbors will put my trash out. They'll take my trash bin back, just because we all have that same care and concern for our community and our neighborhood. So to answer that question, I would definitely get out and start developing the relationships with people and asking. And actually, I do that now, ask a lot of people, so what would you like to see development-wise? What do you think we should do? What are some changes you're liking? What are some changes you're not liking? Those kinds of things to create an ongoing community atmosphere. Mm-hmm.
Well, the mayor took my question, so I'm now moving in another direction. And by the way, you get some gold stars for, not silver, gold stars for saying infrastructure first, because I think that's the way we've been heading. And I actually am the one board liaison member who serves on the RAC. And we've moved away from events towards infrastructure, but we still do both. And I'm curious if when we get down to the point of these events, there's not a lot of money because it gets taken up with other things that are higher on the priority list. But when you get to events, what is your inclination when organizations that are putting on these events come back year after year? Do you favor building with that seed money that event over time, or do you think it's best if you bring in new ones if they come to you and drop off the old ones after they've, been around a couple of years?
I think that's a pretty great question, and I think that in order to get the answers to that, we also have to include community involvement. How many people are actually interested in the event still? How many people are attending the event? What are the impacts to businesses? It's not just do we like those people still or do we not? It's more of how is it affecting our community really positively or negatively before we can make a decision like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Sherry, anything else you'd like to say?
No, but I'm excited for the interview. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And as I said, you're welcome to stay while we interview the other candidate. And thank you for your participation. I appreciate it. Welcome. Will you just state your name?
My name is Gregory Stedfield.
Welcome, Gregory.
Thank you.
how this process works is each of us will ask you a question or two, and then after that, we will make the hard determination.
Sounds good.
All right, and I will start. A couple of questions from me. Why do you want to do this? And secondly, what types of events would you like to see, special events, to support the arts in the redevelopment areas?
Well, to your first question, thank you, by the way. I've always wanted to do something like this, something more formal than, I do some volunteering at the food bank, give blood, stuff like that, so I wanted to try and do something more formal. This is really the first opportunity that I've had, and what also makes it easier is that the company I work for presently actually supports things like this, so that really helps. As far as the arts, I'm a musician at heart, so I would like to see more music. I marched down, the Carson Street, I don't know, 6 years in a row between Reed High and UNR in the parade. Plus, I was on All-State Band and All-State Orchestra those years. So, I would say music.
Don't take my question, John. I know you're going to get back at me.
No, I'll be nice, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask you, we have the RAC committee is one of them I serve on as a liaison from this board, and we have decisions that we make involving events, as was just said, and we've moved a little bit towards infrastructure, but we still do fund organizations that are putting on events. And I'm curious as to your philosophy regarding whether event organizers who have an event and they want to establish it come back each year and ask for money, or would you prefer after a while to have new ones come and let the old ones slide out so that they have to be self-sustaining?
Personally, I think that everybody should get their bite of the apple. So I'm not necessarily saying that it's one and done, but maybe over a couple of years, maybe the subsidy gets less and less as we help them become more self-sufficient, which would provide, more opportunity for other events.
Okay. In the current program, we have something called Facade. Are you familiar with the Facade program?
I am.
Okay, good. Then we'll make it easier. So let's say 3 projects come to each get $25,000. What criteria or methodology would you use to select who gets the $25,000?
I think it really depends on the project. Just to let you know, and I really goofed because I didn't get my resume in there, but I'm a civil engineer, licensed civil engineer. And I was actually at the RAC meeting last week. I think Supervisor Barrett, you remember me from there. And I know we were talking about Jack's Bar and the cost that would be associated with doing the facade on that. And mostly that's because it's unreinforced masonry, right? And that's why you have to take it down and then put it back up. So it really depends on the projects that come in. I'm not necessarily saying, putting good money after bad, but there's got to be some reasonableness to the proposal and what they're trying to do with the money. Does that make sense?
Well, Gregory, here's a first question for you that has nothing to do with redevelopment. Why don't you explain to the board what a brown shoe is?
So, the city manager knows, doesn't he? You an ex-sailor too?
No, Marine.
I'm sorry. Anyway.
You're hired.
I think he set me up. I think I was set up. I think he set me up.
Let's face it, you guys did our dirty work for us. Thank you. So a brown shoe, back in the old days, both Mayor Crowell and I were both in the Navy. So the aviators wore brown shoes. Mostly the pilots. I think us enlisted guys still had the black shoes. But so the aviators were the brown shoes. The surface warfare people were black shoes, and then we affectionately called the submariners bubbleheads. So there's kind of some of the Navy parlance there.
All right, thanks, Gregory. And the question I have for you is, it's probably a simple question, or it goes right to the, it probably is overly simplistic, but what is the source of funds that the Redevelopment Authority uses?
Quite honestly, I don't know. I did come to the meeting last week, but I didn't really understand where the source of the funds came from. I don't know if they're from the general fund or grants from the state. I honestly don't know.
They're it's tax increment financing off of real property taxes. Yeah, that's okay. That's good.
How are you, Gregory?
Awesome.
Good. I have two questions for you. The first is, have you read or looked at the redevelopment area agreements, and are you familiar with the two redevelopment areas?
The only one that I'm familiar with is the downtown area. I haven't read them, but I know that's the major redevelopment area. And I'm based on what I've listened to, it's from Fairview up to about William, but I don't know them precisely.
Your redevelopment area 1 is basically downtown and the Costco property. Redevelopment 2 is South Carson and the Kmart property.
Opposite donuts.
Right. How that works. Right. Yeah. My second question is that redevelopment funds can be used for infrastructure projects, beautification projects, or special events. What methodology would you use to prioritize between those three different types of projects?
Quite honestly, it would, to me, it would depend on what is in the capital improvement program, for capital projects. I know that last week one of the projects that came in was the improvements on South Carson, Fairview South. So it would depend on what projects are coming up that have a timeline to them, and maybe need some participating funds from the Redevelopment Authority. As far as the other ones, here again, with events, I think it would depend on what the event is, how many times they've come to the Redevelopment Authority for some funding, and some items like that.
Thank you. And Gregory, is there anything else you want to offer?
The only thing that I wanted to offer is, looking at the makeup of the Citizens Committee now, I think I would be a nice add to the committee, having that engineering background because of the monies that are asked of the committee. There's a couple of examples from last week. The ladies from the Children's Museum came and were asking for some funds for a playground in front. And being able to, and I kind of, after they got done, I kind of went over and said, you can ask your consultant for a rough order of magnitude cost estimate, because you guys can't just write a blank check. You kind of have to know what the projects are going to be. I also, Supervisor Barrett probably remembers me getting up and talking about the signage that Public Works wanted money for. And so having the understanding of construction, first of all, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I've been on the design side and the construction side. So I just think my background would really benefit the committee. And I'm sure that, both of us would do a fine job. And so.
Well, thank you. That segues right into the hard work. So you're welcome to remain in the audience while we deliberate here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board.
I don't know. I'll go. We have, as usual, we have great candidates, and today we have two great candidates. And kind of as a synopsis, the way I kind of see it is, we have Sherry, who's had redevelopment experience, albeit in Las Vegas. But I think that's a valuable skill set to bring to the RAC committee, and it's also a valuable skill set to bring the civil engineering talent to the RAC committee. So those are two hard things to weigh. But I guess when I look at it, I think that the experience in redevelopment probably just tips at scale in favor of Sherry for having this job, and I'd like to ask Gregory to stay involved. I mean, we don't get many engineers coming in here to do these things, and so God bless you for trying. So,
Yeah, I would agree with the mayor's comments. Both qualified candidates. I just think that, you know, our rebel over here just hit it out of the park on our interview, so I would tend to lean that way. And again, I would encourage you, Gregory, to come back because we need people like you as well on there.
Okay, Lori or John?
Okay, I'll go. I think you're right that we have two fine candidates, and so I think that Sherry had a great interview, but I'm not so sure at all times that you have an opportunity when the projects are presented to you to actually vet them the way in which you suggested. So I caution you to understand that you get the agenda on a Thursday and you've got a week to come up with the determination of where you're going, but I like your idea of getting involved in the community on the front end and trying to garner ideas. So I think I really liked that enthusiasm that you'd involve as much of the community as you could. So for that reason, I think I'm gonna go with you for Sherry. But you bring a wealth of information too.
Well, that's nothing new for me.
All right then. So is someone ready to make the motion? All right.
I move to appoint Sherry Powell to the Carson City Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee as a citizen at large to fill a 3-year term ending January 2021.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Sherry and Gregory, as everyone has stated, please reapply because we need your expertise as well. And Sherry, congratulations and welcome aboard. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just point out, while Greg is still here, we have a vacancy now on the Regional Transportation Committee. Unfortunately, we had a Marine who was filling that seat. I don't know.
An upgrade.
I don't know if it's possible to replace that with a Navy vet, but the fact that he is an engineer could help kind of raise that up a little bit. So the Regional Transportation Committee needs another member, and I think he'd potentially be a good fit.
They need the Navy.
And that's open now, right? It's open right now.
It is open now.
Yeah.
So I would encourage
and
you.
as the head of the RTC, I would encourage you to do that.
Thank you both very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to move on to item number 25, public comment. Seeing no public comment, on to item number 26, a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.